Hello, everybody, and welcome in. I need to explain to you something that's about to happen, or I should say, not going to happen. Normally, when we get together toward the end of every month, we take news stories, usually the most current, and we take a closer look at them. We try to ask the questions of one another that you might ask. But recently, a story exploded here in Oklahoma that, quite frankly, none of us are prepared to deal with, and I don't think you'd want us to. You've already been inundated with pictures and words and feelings of grief out of Oklahoma State University. And quite frankly, it's our feeling that this story is far from over. We don't know yet all the facts in this story, and it's going to be a while until they all shake out. Obviously, our thoughts go out to the families who are suffering grief that can't begin to be measured. And as far as Oklahoma State University is concerned, everyone there should know that everyone on this campus and everybody in this panel has your back. So for the time being, we're going to walk away from this story, and we're going to turn to stories that have been in the news as of late that we understand. Quite frankly, that's not one of them. Our guests today are Ziva Brandstetter and Charlie Biggs. And Ziva, I have to say, it's been so long since you've been here, and I didn't get an excused absence ticket from you. A little bit about you first, the organization you're with.
It's The Frontier, and we're an investigative and enterprise news website. So we do in-depth articles, watchdog journalism, that kind of thing. We also have some fun. We have a podcast, book reviews, and features.
So if folks want to check in, they just go to the website?
They can go to tulsafrontier.com, and some of our content is free, and then we also offer memberships for the full website.
I gotcha. All right. How often's the turnover?
We post several stories a day, so there's routinely fresh copy on the site. All of us blog, and then we have more in-depth articles, on a regular basis.
I got you. Well, it's good to have you here.
Thank you.
Charlie, I picked up the Beacon the other day over at Quick Trip. You were right. I found it.
Okay.
It turns out every time I go in, they're out.
Okay.
And that's why it wasn't there. But I got in, I had to go in early one morning before sunup, found it. You do good work, lad.
Well, we try to keep the big words out.
That's why you've got me following you now. John Durkee is normally with us. John couldn't be with us today. He'll be with us next time around, we hope. First story out of the barrel, Stanley Glantz didn't survive. I think conventional wisdom said he would, and all of a sudden, boom, here comes the grand jury indictments. Comments, observations?
Well, I've been reporting on this since it broke in April. In fact, one of my staff members and I, Dylan Goforth, broke it at the World. I just think it was, too much. The straw that broke the camel's back. These were misdemeanor indictments, but it was just sort of the weight of the total revelations. And, I think he probably would have been wise to retire earlier. But I think it's not over yet. The OSBI has an active investigation. I have sources that have said that a federal grand jury is hearing evidence as well. That's
really tragic that a career this, he did a lot of good.
He's 7-term
Right.
sheriff.
Yeah. And this is going to be what folks will remember.
Right.
Yeah, it's a little disturbing to think that a couple of misdemeanors, because you're innocent until proven guilty.
True.
I'm not saying that it was squeaky clean. That's not what I'm trying to say. But the idea that we could get rid of a sheriff with that was elected, that's been there that long, and forced into resignation, that could cause problems down the road, I think.
One quick thing, because I'm a little hazy on understanding this. County commissioners voted to let him maintain his law officer status?
His peace officer status. So it's really an honorary type of thing where they can keep their badge and their gun. If there's some kind of civil emergency, they could be pressed into service. But it's sort of an honorary status to retire with your badge and gun. There was some folks in the community who had got the grand jury together who objected to this, and the vote was 2-1, but ultimately they decided they can take it back later if he has a felony or something like that.
Felony conviction.
Yeah.
All right. The governor stopped all executions until spring. Boy, did this story go from simmering to a boiling cauldron to all of a sudden, boom. And we have not just national attention, we had worldwide attention focused on Oklahoma. You've been close to one of these. Could you help unfold the pages for us?
Well, sure. Oklahoma's been having trouble, like all states, getting the lethal drugs that it needs to carry out executions. So that's one issue. The other issue is just the competency issue. We had the Clayton Lockett execution, which is one of the 4 that I've witnessed, and of course that went terribly awry. And then we had, one in between there that sort of a little smoother, although not perfect. And then we had Richard Glossop's execution, which was a huge buildup, and it was stayed. It's been stayed 4 times now. I was in the media center. They went past the time they were supposed to execute him, and then they stayed it. And the reason was that they had the wrong drug. Now, they didn't figure this out until 2 hours before the execution. And apparently they just didn't open the box. So there's now an investigation into what happened, why did they get the wrong drug. It was the 3rd drug, potassium chloride. There was a substitute drug, basically. And
I remember a flurry of activity from over there. So, it'll do the same thing.
That's right. It is the same chemically, but it's not legally the same. They have a protocol that they have to follow, and they have to be very careful about deviating from that. And so the Attorney General is convened a multi-county grand jury. They've hauled in the Director of Corrections, the Governor's General Counsel. There's a lot of indication that there's bumping of the heads between the Attorney General and the Governor's staff over this.
Really? So This is going to get heated before it even begins to settle down.
I think it will. And it's sad that this is in such disarray.
Yeah.
The people in Oklahoma favor the death penalty, and if we're going to carry it out, we need to do so constitutionally.
Well, you brought up an interesting point. They may favor it, but Charlie, do you guys think we're going to see the death penalty done away with anytime soon?
I don't think so, not in Oklahoma, unless it's by judicial action. But I think most people that do favor the death penalty would say that they want to get it right. They don't want to, they want to follow the law, and they want to make sure that the people that are executed are actually people that are guilty of the crimes they've been accused of.
Yeah, and that's the added sort of part of this that's interesting is that there's, the Glossop case is not the ideal death penalty case. It was a murder for hire. It was, there was just the testimony of a co-defendant who got life. The actual killer got life in exchange for his testimony. So there's been a lot of interest in his case, and he's been very good at getting media attention as well.
Wow. State Department of Education released its A through F school grade report, and it hit the fan. I mean, folks were coming out, even from Joy Hoffmeister, saying, hey, you know what? It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Why do we have to jump through these hoops? What's this all about?
Well, in Tulsa, you had 52 schools that got an F, and it represents 28% of all the schools statewide that got the F grade, which is a lot. That's a lot more than Oklahoma City. And there are 11 schools. This has been done. This is the 3rd time this grading system has been used, and this is 11 schools went down from last time. So is it a perfect system? I don't think anybody would say that it is. I think the legislature reacted with this law because they saw that parents wanted some way to gauge whether the education process is really working like it should. So maybe there's a better system, but still you got to kind of look at that and think, wow, 52 schools with an F rating. And let me also, Tulsa Public Schools has a high minority student population. It's over 50%. A lot of the more affluent people have moved to the suburbs, so Tulsa Public Schools is in kind of a unique situation as compared to Oklahoma City. But still, it has to be a bit of a reaction to such a poor showing.
I mean, I just think why have the system when you have your own superintendent basically saying, well, it's, sort of downgrading the measurement and questioning it. Of course, when she was running for office, she was critical of Janet Barisi's, use of this type of letter grade. So I agree with you.
Why do we have it?
As parents, we need a way. Well, it's part of the testing culture, and people want a quick way to look at a grade card and see, is a nursing home good, is a hospital good, is a school good? But I'm not sure that you can measure them in this way that they're doing. I think they need to involve experts in coming up with a way to improve this system.
While we're on this, even the White House has jumped in the fray over testing.
Right.
And parents are screaming their heads off, and justifiably, I believe. Teachers have been saying it all along, that too many tests for these children.
Yeah.
Can anything be done about this?
Well, teachers that I've talked to in public schools, they say they don't want to have to teach the test. They just want to teach.
Exactly.
They want to be able to not spend so much time because there's so much pressure from having these tests and the results of them, because the public does react to this, and it makes a weaker case for funding when we're spending more money on education, and then you have these tests comes up like this, and so I'm not sure we'd be better off just not eliminating a lot of these tests. But then again, Joe Hofmeister has proposed that the state next year they're going to pay for all of the juniors in high school to have a free ACT test. And that's part of the idea of trying to get more kids into college because of the economic development aspect.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great idea. I mean, I have a son that's, college age, 2 kids that went through the Jinx system, and it does seem, I saw some study this week that said that schools that take more tests don't necessarily do any better academically, that students, spend a lot of time worrying about tests and not enough time in instructional time. So I do think we need to back off on the number of tests, but the ACT is a very important test, and a lot of kids who just don't think they can go to college, don't plan for it, but they may be very gifted.
Yeah, the better gauge too when we see our high school graduates in Oklahoma, they go into the colleges and they have to take remedial courses. And
that's got to stop.
They have good grades.
Or at least diminish.
Yeah.
And the testing isn't helping that, so let's try something else.
Let's go back to teaching, maybe?
Yeah.
Which I think sounds like an admirable endeavor, altogether. Well, we're going to take a short break, come back. We got to talk about the budget, because we all know what's coming, I suspect. And we'll be back with more right after this.